Welcome back. I wanted to give you guys an update. If you have seen, if you follow us on Facebook, you've seen the GoFundMe page we've got for this car right here. If you don't follow us on Facebook, search for ANA Diversified. Go ahead and like that page, and you can follow along. You see new videos when they post. You can see some updates. Well, I posted a GoFundMe for this car right here. It's a young couple, good friends of ours. They got a raw deal when they purchased this car from a dealership in Starkville, Mississippi. And I won't call the name of the dealership. I'll just say that it sounds like two last names. Didn't bother disclosing. They may have disclosed it in the fine print, but this car has been wrecked with major frame damage multiple times. They dolled it up, put a little lipstick on it, and they sold it to my good friends at a premium price, well over retail value. Now, all right, buyer beware, I understand that, but y'all, come on. At what point do we stop taking advantage of our fellow human beings and just start being kind to one another? All right, I'll get off my soapbox. So I just wanted to update you on this. The GoFundMe, I didn't get a lot of donations on there. I'm a little disappointed in that. I have gotten some cash handed to me in person. I have got a good friend of mine had a contact who donated brand new tires, and these are Cooper tires. This ain't the cheap stuff. This ain't the China-made spicy egg roll brand. These are Cooper tires made in Tupelo, Mississippi. Okay, those are good tires. Because the tires that were on the car are totally shot. With the donations that were handed to me, I was able to get brake rotors, brake pads. I have completed the new alternator installation, and I think you saw the last little video I did where I told you to, bring it out from up top. Make sure you put it back in from up top. It went in a whole lot quicker than it came out. Just a tip, I don't think you have to dislodge the air conditioning compressor at all. That was one of the most major things it took, well, most of the time in trying to get the alternator out. I was following someone else's instructions. And that's okay to do, but never not question something. So go up top with it. It installs a whole lot quicker than it came out. So I was in the process today of getting everything buttoned up. I got the alternator in. I got his new belt on. Got the tensioner bolted back in there. So I'm doing brakes, and now, I assumed, which I knew look at that rotor. It looks like ripples when you drop a rock in the water, all the ripple effects. My goodness. Look at the caliper. What's wrong with this picture? You see that tear in the boot right there? So if you know how a caliper works, it's hydraulic. You push the brake pedal, brake fluid goes through this hose. It's the back of a piston that's in here. This is the piston. This is this side of the piston. The other side back here, and the brake fluid presses on it, pushes it out. It pushes against the pads. Well, these boots are there to keep the brake fluid from leaking out. They do sell rebuild kits for these. However, save yourself some heartache. Buy a reman brake caliper. I recommend the ones from Napa. They have absolutely the best remanufactured brake calipers. Awesome. So, they don't do special orders on Saturday because of some issues internally that they've had. Monday, I'm going to special order the brake calipers. I think the back ones are okay. If this front one is bad, I'm not going to just replace this one front one. I'll replace the two front ones. So we'll have to wait a little bit on those. I won't get the front ones done today. So we're going to leave the fronts undone. Now the back ones, the thing about these back ones, uh, I I don't think they have ever been serviced, and I'll tell you why. You have to take the caliper and the bracket. You know, your caliper is basically two parts. You got the caliper itself, then you got the bracket that holds your caliper in there and slides when you mash your brakes. You know, it slides on some slide pins right here. Well, when I was just going to take the slide pins out to get the caliper off, one of them was directly in line with this bar, and you can jack it up or jack it down, but that bar is going to follow it, and you can't get it out. Well, I think the reason that these weren't serviced is because take this bottom slide bolt out and it hits here. Um, so I said, well, I'll just take the whole bracket off, and then we take the slide bolts out. Well, your bottom bracket bolt is here, and it fouls out with the bottom of the brace here if you try to get anything other than a wrench. And so it's a 19 millimeter, which I don't have a 19 millimeter socket, so I'm using a 3/4 inch wrench. You can't get the bolt all the way out, but you can get it to where it'll, you know, you've got it unthreaded from the bracket, and you can just get it all off. It's a hassle, I'm going to tell you. Now the piston did push in good on this back one. So I believe we're going to be able to salvage the back calipers. I haven't looked at the other one yet. I'm just about to. So at least the two front calipers, I think they're about $50 a piece. It's unusual that the front calipers are larger and are cheaper. The rear ones are almost $90 a piece. They're little small things. So I don't know. I don't know how they figure all that mess. But anyway, let's go look at the other one to see if we can salvage it as well. Show you another way that I don't think the rear has ever been serviced before. I just spent an hour beating and pulling and prying, trying to get this slide bolt unscrewed and then out. You see I wiped it off, but you see the corrosion on there. Yeah, that had this dude frozen in there really well. I can reuse these. Just make sure whenever you do a brake job, make sure you take these slide pins out and inspect them. If nothing else, hit them on the wire wheel or some really, really fine sandpaper, get any roughness or corrosion off of them. Then lube them up real well with some silicone grease or just regular grease. It's really whatever you got. And the idea is that the bracket and the caliper, they slide, which the bracket is bolted to your knuckle down there, but caliper is supposed to be able to slide on these slide pins. That's where your brake pads will wear evenly at that point. These brake pads are worn very unevenly, and basically because there was no sliding going on. The bottom pin was totally frozen, and the bottom bolt holding the bracket on was very difficult to get out as well. So it's taken me about an hour to get this bracket and caliper off because of the corrosion. So if I was placing an order right now, I would probably order new slide pins, but we're reusing rear calipers, because this one too appears to be in good shape. You know, there's no torn boot, anything like that. The moisture you see is from the PB blaster. I was constantly spraying on these things trying to get them out. So another tip is on your bracket, first of all, make sure your boots are in decent shape. These are just dirty. I'll clean them off. But so that's the hole where your slide pin slides through. Get you a spray you some brake clean in there. You know, puddle it up in there. Get you a Q-tip or a pipe cleaner would work really well. And run it up and down through there and clean that out. Make sure there's no corrosion in there. Just when you're spraying the brake clean in there, don't point it towards your eye, because it'll ricochet back out. When you get done, you know, hold it like this, spray brake clean in it, and rinse it out real good. Dry it. You can dry it with compressed air. Once you make sure it's all good and dried, and you clean your slide pin up, go ahead and grease your slide pins up. Get ready to put those back in, and you should be fine. So what I'm doing right now is I've got the brackets inside. I'm cleaning them up, and the slide bolts, I'm having to retap the threads because they're a little corroded. So out here on the caliper itself, I've got my tap, and I'm running the tap through these threads as well to straighten them and clean them. Now on the back brake caliper, it's a M12 by 1.25. That's the thread size. So the tap, of course, you clean the threads out with that. On the bolt itself, you'll have to use the die, but the same size, M12 by 1.25. So I'm gonna run these out, and then I'll show you inside cleaning the slide pins off. So on the slide pins, of course, you know, it's only threaded right here where it threads actually into the caliper. I've already cleaned this one off, and if you look real close, you know, between the threads, you can see, you know, there's little rust and corrosion. The die really cleaned it up and straightened the threads out pretty good. So what you do is your tap is the male part, the die is the female part, and so you get your bolt started in there, and you got a holder. The die has its holder, the tap has a holder. So you get your die in there, and you get it clamped just finger tight. These screws are just finger tight. And then, of course, if I had a couple more hands I could show you, but you hold this, get this on your bolt, and you basically just screw the bolt into the die, and as you do, it will straighten and clean the threads up. And if you've never seen a tap and die has, just to focus, really sharp teeth that are pitched the same as what your bolt is. This is a M18 by 1.5. This is a metric set I'm using here, but your die cuts at the thread pitch. Your tap cuts at the thread pitch. This metric set, I have a standard set as well, but if you don't have a tap and die set, you don't have to have one with this many parts and pieces in it. You can get a basic one, standard, and then you can get a metric set, you know, off the Amazons, and you won't spend a whole lot of money, and they will come in extremely handy. This way I don't have to buy new slide pins. These are salvageable. I just needed to straighten the threads, get them good and clean, both the slide pin and on the caliper that we're actually the rear calipers that we're salvaging. And then as far as the bolts that hold the bracket on, the you know, the top one was okay, and then the bottom one was difficult to get out. Not sure exactly why that is, but I'll have to see which tap and die fit this. I don't know what the thread pitch on it is, what size it is, but gonna do the same thing with these, and we're gonna make sure our holes are good and cleaned out before we put this back together. The top slide pins, you know, which came out pretty easily. I haven't run these through the wire wheel. All I did was get some brake clean and cleaned them off. They cleaned up really nice. Don't know why the top ones are in great shape and the bottom ones were corroded to where I had to focus, to where I had to beat them off. You see this, see around the neck of it right here? Look at that pitted, where it's pitted. I don't know why that is. I guess, well, I don't know. Top one's in pretty good shape, bottom one not, both sides. So we're gonna clean these up. Once we do reinstall them, we'll put grease on the slide pins, try to protect those, get it all put back together. Okay, just realized the holes in the bracket are the same, and the bolts are the same thread size as the slide pins. It's that M12 by 1.25 metric. All right, on the front calipers, the bracket bolts are an M14 by 1.5. See here on my die, M14, 1.5. These were not the easiest things to get out, so I'm just going to run the threads on them and then the holes in the brackets as well. Because I don't know, when I order these Monday, I'm just preparing for the fact that the brackets may not come with them. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. They usually specify, but I don't have anything else I can do today. But just to kind of keep moving forward, I was going to go ahead and tap these out and get the bolts ready and all that good stuff for when the calipers get here. So our new brake calipers came in today, and they look pretty awesome. That's what I like about buying Napa parts. You get the nice painted calipers. Their rebuilt stuff is really good quality. So I couldn't get the brake rotor off, so I hit it with a hammer, and all of a sudden all this rust started falling out from behind it. And I've never really had that happen before, but when I got the rotor off, so, you know, we talked about slide pins and how if they don't slide, you get uneven wear and stuff like that. I've never quite seen this. This is heavily grooved in the small area where the pad was actually connecting to the rotor. The rest of this is badly rusted, like pretty bad. Never quite seen that before, but when you're putting new brake pads on, take the time and make sure, even take the rotor off and inspect both sides. That way you can tell if the pads are wearing evenly, if your rotor is getting even contact from both sides, and you can stop a lot of this before it happens. If you've got a problem with a slide pin not sliding, if your brake caliper is not releasing like it's supposed to, you could have one of your rubber lines maybe collapsed. I mean, do a thorough job, follow through, disassemble, inspect before you reassemble. Don't just slap some brake pads in it. So we're gonna go ahead and put these front calipers on with these new rotors. And like I said, the calipers are nice and black, which means on the back ones that we're keeping, because they're still in good shape, we're gonna have to hit them with some spray paint, because otherwise it's gonna look unsightly. We got a couple other things we need to do. We do have the new tires that I showed you, and we're going to be taking them to a quick change tire and lube oil place to have them mount the tires. They're going to do an oil change for us. The air conditioning system When I hook my gauges to it, the low pressure side does not move. It has pressure, about 40 to 50 psi pressure, but when the compressor cycles off and on, and it does too frequently, the low side pressure does not change. So we've got a clog in the system somewhere. So what I'm gonna have them to do is flush it and fill it, and they'll be able to see if maybe an orifice tube, if this car has orifice tubes, probably does, maybe stopped up or whatever. So we're gonna let them do that AC service, oil change, gonna do the tire mounting and balancing, and they're gonna do a wheel alignment for us. All right, further updates. As I'm getting ready to put the nice new rotor, nice new caliper, getting ready to put all that on, I was getting the rust that fell off from the back of this old rotor up here. I was getting all that rust off, and I spun this with my hand. I don't know if you can hear it. You hear that noise when it turns. It sounds like a bad bearing. When I did drive this car previously, I was sure I heard I want to call it a roaring noise. It was a low roar. And I thought it was coming from the passenger side, but when I turned this with my hand, it sounds like a really rough, listen real close. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can hear it, and it sounds definitely like a bearing that's gone bad in here. Just for comparison, I went to the other side and spun it, and it's nice and smooth and quiet, and this one is not. So it doesn't look like I'm gonna be putting front brakes on today, because I'm gonna need to get this off and get the bearings out of there, replace wheel bearings. It's a gift that keeps on giving, man. It's you know, never ending fun. All right, so let's do that. All right, so we picked up some front bearing hubs from Napa, and you can see that these didn't want to just fall out. I have beat and I beat and I beat. So finally got them to turn loose, and what I'm going to do, which will help the next guy, but you know, this car will probably never have another set of these bearings on it again, but I'm going to put a little never sees around the inside of here. The reason being, you can also put some copper coat, something like that. This is an aluminum steering knuckle. These bearing hubs, I believe they're steel. And we've got some corrosion because of the different metals. So take a little copper coat, something like that. You can even spread a little copper coat or anti-seize, whatever, something along the face here. Just a thin layer. You don't want something that's going to interfere with your torque on your bolts. When we put the new bearing hubs on, these bolts get torqued to 65 foot-pounds. Now the nut that goes on the end of this drive shaft, this is a half shaft, CV axle, drive shaft, whatever you want to call it, for the driver's side. Now this nut that fits on there is 32 millimeter. I have in metric everything but a 32 millimeter. However, a 1 1/4 inch socket will fit it perfectly. So I took my 1 1/4 socket, got this nut almost all the way off, threaded on about halfway, 3/4 of the way, because you're going to have to, you're not just go out to tap, you're going to have to do some pretty good beating on it to get this shaft. It's splined. See, it is splined, and it, you know, it connects with the You can't see it right now. It connects with the splines inside your bearing right here. And it didn't want to give up the ghost either. So I beat on that for a while, but you're gonna have to get a persuader no smaller than that, and just go to whaling on it, because she ain't gonna want to come out. Voila. All right, just a quick word of caution on these wheel bearing hubs. There is a top and a bottom. I got lucky on the driver's side. It just happened to, you know, you got a 50-50 shot. I got it right on the driver's side. I didn't get it right on the passenger side, and I had to take the bolts back loose, rotated 180 degrees, and then it was good. The reason there's a top and bottom, your sensor right here, it's probably, I don't know if it's an ABS sensor, wheel speed sensor, I don't know. Anyway, this little sensor goes into your bearing hub. Here's the old one, so I'll show you. See this little slot? All right, this slot is stationary with the part that gets bolted on. So with it like this, the slot is kind of up towards the top. If we rotate it 180 degrees, there's another slot, but it's towards the bottom, because it depends if you're doing a right hand or left hand. So when you install this, if you want to look down in that hole where your sensor goes, because your sensor will be out, you got to take it out to remove the old bearing hub, or you'll tear your sensor up. Look down in that hole, and if you see down in there and you're good, that's fine, you're good to go. But if you look down in there and you see that, and your sensor won't go all the way in, it kind of bottoms out, take your bolts back out, rotate your bearing hub 180 degrees. It'll fit then. Ask me how I know. Brakes are bled, and I even dialed up these rear calipers that we're keeping with a little spray paint. So in the morning, we're taking her to the tire and lube shop. We'll get the new tires mounted and balanced, get a front end alignment, get the AC flushed, oil changed. Won't you tag along with me? Got to wake up early now. Go to bed early, wake up early. Go with me. I need to clean this windshield. Got the crew working on it. Here in Starkville, Mississippi, at the Express Oil Change and the Tire Engineers. Got the Maxima in there. They're gonna take care of it for us. Friendly people. They do a lot of stuff here. The tire shop is in the back there, you can see. Seem to think it's be a problem fixing what the problem we're having with the air conditioner. Pretty much a full service place. If y'all in the area, you might want to try them out. Well, we made it back home. The tires, the new Cooper tires, look really good on the car. Drove the car through the car wash. It did a pretty good job. Of course, you know how the car washes are. Really needs another good hand wash, but for the time it takes and the money you pay, it did pretty good. So Express Oil Change is the name of the place, and maybe the express part only applies to the oil changes, because I was at the place for 6 hours. 2 hours of that was entirely unnecessary because they had finished with my car. Nobody bothered to come out and tell me. So for 2 hours, I just hung out at the place with them. But anyway, air conditioning's cold. Tires look great. They're balanced. The wheel alignment, it goes straight down the road. Fresh oil change. So we're ready to turn it back over to the young couple. Thank everybody for the donations. Much appreciated. I pray it will be multiplied back to you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. And just remember, always be kind to one another. See you next time.